Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier and now 7-time award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, and certainly the Garden State's most beloved and factually accurate conservative. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I know I did. Got to enjoy some football, of course, as well as the NFL. My Cowboys winning, which is always a good thing. Certainly got to finish my online Christmas shopping, and most importantly, spending time with family. But of course, folks, here, politics never takes a break. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Ladies and gentlemen, certainly I am someone that is very unapologetic as a conservative, in some instances, even as a social conservative. But I do have compassion, and I also do have a lot of empathy when it comes to marginalized communities. I know, despite what some others might say, either regionally or even statewide. But the recent shooting at a LGBTQ club out in Colorado, and certainly incidents that have been happening in Manhattan, have drawn a lot of attention to the LGBTQ community. But I also want to make it a point to remind everybody that yes, while shootings are tragic, ladies and gentlemen, it's really, handguns are the leading cause of deaths in the United States. And quite frankly, while everyone's having a meltdown about AR-15s, it's handguns that, again, lead the nation in gun deaths, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the country. But again, when it comes to the left here in the state of New Jersey, or even nationally, and specifically within the media itself, there's never an opportunity to miss when it comes to virtue signal and to sort of demonize responsible gun owners, and that's what happened. So let me just give you some context here about what sort of concerns me about all the hysteria. So recently, New Jersey LGBTQ leaders were condemning the recent Club Q shooting. Now, Governor Phil Murphy, along with the Attorney General, Matthew Platkin, the first openly gay Attorney General in the history of the state of New Jersey, held a conference call along with LGBTQ leaders last week and provided a clear communication on the state of New Jersey's official response as it pertains to the mass shooting that happened at Club Q, again, an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now, according to the advocacy group Garden State Equality, they were also there in attendance and also voiced some concerns. For all of you that are not aware, on the eve of Saturday night, November the 19th, at least 5 people were killed and at least 25 were injured at Club Q. The shooting came the night before the Transgendered Day of Remembrance, an annual observance dedicated to honoring the memories of those who were killed due to being anti-transgender and certainly being the victims of anti-transgender violence in the previous year. Now, Murphy and Platkin collectively emphasized that based on official intelligence, there are no similar active threats in the state of New Jersey, but they did direct law enforcement and the resources accordingly to be extremely vigilant. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about what happened at Club Q, what's interesting, though, is as new information came out about the shooter himself, well, that's when the tune changed very quickly. Okay? Now, again, looking at the shooter, it was by the name of Anderson Lee Aldrich. He had identified as a non-binary individual. Now, again, as per the reports, the 22-year-old male went on a killing spree at Club Q, again in Colorado, right before, again, as we know, the Transgender Night of Remembrance. Now, according to various news outlets, the accused alleged before the court that he is non-binary. His lawyers claimed in a filing. Now, Anderson Aldrich is indeed binary. They use the they-them pronouns, and for the purposes of all formal filings, will be addressed as MX Aldrich. Now, of course, the woke left, not just in New Jersey, but throughout the country, progressively all lost their minds once Mr. Aldrich came out as non-binary. All the woke fools that I always like to ridicule on this program have been sort of promoting this culture of self-decoration, right? Where, hey, we have to respect pronouns and identities because that's what they preach. Well, the problem is that now, guess what? Now it's come back to bite them in the you-know-whats. And that's what's happening here. So let me just give you some more context about why this is significant. So, of course, many woke activists took to Twitter literally days after Mr. Aldrich declared his status, going to say that the shooting, of course, again, is based on a non-binary status, and of course, it's just a way for him to have hate crime charges dropped against him. Now, the guy is religiously Mormon, again, if you do some homework on him, and has been reported to be very homophobic by his neighbors, again, according to some testimonials we've seen in recent days, okay? Of course, far-left out groups, not just here in New Jersey, but throughout the country, have been having a meltdown about what's going on. But you know what's interesting, though, folks? And again, this is where the narrative changed mysteriously, and it really just disappeared from the news feed and the news cycle within the last week. Now, again, let me be very clear. My heart goes out to the families affected by what happened at Club Q. But you know what's even more interesting? Again, the narrative has changed dramatically. Why? Because, of course, you can't vilify someone who's a conservative or someone on the right, because, again, that's what the left loves to do, especially in the media. Whenever a mass shooting takes place, whether it be throughout the country, guess what happens with the national media? Let's start looking into his or her background, and, of course, more times than not always all the time, but in some instances, certainly, the person can be conservative and sometimes, I don't know, maybe viewed as somewhat homophobic or transphobic. That's not always the case. And again, going back to the reality, folks, is that when the woke mob, the pronoun people, or even the leftists in New Jersey and national media can't push forward their narrative about, hey, we need to grab all the guns as possible. Well, folks, again, the problem isn't responsible gun owners or people that practice the Second Amendment responsibly like yours truly, okay? It's people that, again, have not been vetted. And haven't we learned that recently that this gentleman, right, Mr. Aldrich, not MX, Mr. Aldrich, he's a guy, okay, did call in a bomb threat last year, and he was on the FBI watch list. How does he have access to a firearm? Now, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to ever advocate for gun control because I'm someone that believes in responsible gun ownership. But never blame the left because they'll always take that opportunity to go after, again, responsible gun ownership. And again, the narrative has changed, okay? But here's something even more interesting. Matt Walsh, a brilliant blogger who I like to look at once in a while, and I get it, Matt Walsh likes to troll, and I think that's part of his brand, right? To sort of be inflammatory, bombastic, a little braggadocious, you know, like some other people that I know that do online media, right? Apparently went on some sort of rant shortly after the Club Q incident, and certainly on his YouTube show, and certainly it did get him some vitriol. But this is what's interesting, though, folks, about people like Matt Walsh. What Matt Walsh is simply bringing to attention is the fact that, yes, people can live and let live. I don't have a problem with that. If you're gay, bi, whatever, live your life. I don't care. I don't need it thrown in my face, just like I don't throw my heterosexuality in anyone's faces either, right? But this is what's interesting, though. Matt Walsh went on to say on his YouTube show just days after the incident at Club Q, because Club Q had been planning to host a drag brunch the day after the shooting, Walsh claims that the left is desperate to keep exposing children to this kind of debauchery. Went on to say on his show, he slammed the idea of taking children to drag shows, which he's right about, which he described as inherently sexual, which they are, seeming to blame drag performers for the rates of violence against the LGBTQ community. Family-friendly drag shows have two purposes. One, from the drag queen's perspective, is to satisfy their fetish for cross-dressing in front of children, said Walsh, who is also known for opposing abortion and same-sex marriage. The other, and he's right about this specifically, is to indoctrinate children into queer theory, essentially to turn your children queer, which he's not wrong about either. Now, again, folks, this is the thing that really, I think, gets to the heart of the matter in this culture war when it comes to dealing with the LGBT community, the pronoun people, the woke mob, and everybody else. I don't have an issue with gay people, people who identify as trans. That's not my issue. You can live and let live. I understand that being a straight male, no one's ever discriminated against me. No one's ever hated me for being a straight male. I've been hated on for multiple other reasons, probably because of what comes out of my mouth every week on my media shows. But I know that I've never been hated upon because of my orientation. So I understand that, again, I'm never going to face that level of hate and just venom that gay people and people in the LGBT community have to endure. I get all that. However, though, folks, this is the problem too. That now what we're doing is enabling a lot of, I guess, the woke nonsense to the LGBTQ community pervades. Now, again, let me break this down even further. Again, this is the academic in me that wants to be as specific as possible. And folks, this is where, again, we have to talk about facts, okay? And the facts is when it comes to language, context, and everything else, this is where the LGBT community gets itself into trouble. And one of the biggest issues, again, this past election cycle, not just in New Jersey, right? There were hundreds of school board elections throughout the state of New Jersey and throughout the country, okay? Where parents were not being bigots, parents were not being homophobes, parents were not being transphobes, they were being parents. They want to let their children be children, okay? And this is where I think arguably comes to the heart of the matter, okay? I did a little research here about identity and everything else, and this is a pretty alarming comprehensive guide here by psychologists and sex experts when it comes to gender identity and everything else. Now, again, I'm not going to bore you with all this, folks. But this is the thing, though, and this is where I think parents out there, now I don't have any children that I know of, but if I was a parent, I would be very, very cautious and be very vigilant with my school district to make sure that whatever curriculum is being introduced isn't trying to bring some of this out there. Now, again, I get it. It's on the DOE website. It's over 100 pages. You can read it. It's pretty interesting stuff. Again, if it's not something that really, piques your curiosity, then I understand why you wouldn't read it. But folks, again, when it comes to teaching our children, I get it, okay? I grew up in Hudson County. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic community. We didn't talk about gay people. We didn't talk about trans people. We didn't talk about bisexual people. We didn't talk about lesbians and gays. I get it. We kind of kept it quiet. And you know what? My parents at a very young age taught me, hey, respect people regardless of what their skin color is, their gender, their orientation, whatever, they're people too. Okay? But something I didn't grow up with, and I think what a lot of kids are being exposed to now, is this over-sexualization of curriculums, not just maybe in New Jersey, but throughout the country. But we're seeing, again, just an over-sexualization in general. Folks, when we're talking about, the different types of genders, I mean, check out this sort of madness here. Again, I passed high school biology, as I know many of you did, but this is how insane it's getting now with the pronoun people and the LGBTQ community. Again, because if you don't advocate for this, if you don't go along with what they're trying to convey, then you're a bigot, you're a transphobe, you're a homophobe. That's nonsense, okay? Whether it's talking about anatomical sex, which is true, we've all learned about that, or being cisgendered or transgendered. Here's a good one. Cishet, non-binary, intersex, genderqueer, gender fluid, gender nonconforming, gender expansive, agender, gender void. Oh, this is madness here. Here's a good one. Bigender, omnigender, pangender, and two-spirit. Folks, do you see the madness here? Do you see why so many conservatives like me are just really rightfully angry about the fact that this is the sort of nonsense that we're trying to convey on our children, whether it happens in pop culture, whether it's in media, even in elements of education, folks. Okay, I work in higher education. I see this all the time. Doesn't mean I'm intolerant. It just means that, again, we're sort of exposing our kids to things that they don't need to know about, quite frankly. And even at the youngest of ages, let kids be kids, okay? Let children just grow up organically and naturally. Instead of sort of shoving all the sexuality into their consciousness, what we need to do is let them be children, okay? There's no need to drag a child to any drag show. I challenge any parent to come explain to me how they think this is a good idea, to expose their children as young as 5. Do you remember how impressionable you were when you were 5? I could barely tie my shoelaces. All I cared about was playing Little League Baseball, which I was pretty good at. Did I think about girls? Not really. Okay. Did I think about, I don't know, what gender I would know? Okay. When I was a kid, I don't know, I wanted to be a pirate. Did I go tell my parents to go remove my eye and remove a limb? No, of course not. My parents let me be a child. They knew I'd eventually grow out of it. But what we're seeing now is this sort of culture where, yes, children as young as 5 are being allowed to determine their gender. This is madness. This is the stuff that myself, Matt Walsh, and other intellectuals are trying to rally against. Now, again, getting back to the Club Q situation, my heart goes out to these communities. Certainly, they should not be marginalized. But it's very, very interesting, though. The agenda still exists, where as soon as the shooter came out as non-binary, well, the LGBT community and the pronoun people suddenly changed their tune real quick because haven't we always heard forever? Oh, let's respect all identities and genders. Well, guess what? I hate to break it to you. You need to respect Mr. Aldrich's gender identity now because guess what? It is relevant. So whether you like it or not, folks, that's where we're going. So either be consistent or not at all. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. Now some local stories for your consideration. A special thank you to John Hines with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Let's go to the Moscow city of Hoboken, where 5th Ward Councilman Phil Cohen has announced his re-election bid after a recall attempt eventually did fizzle out. He announced his recall bid earlier last week, and he put out a statement, quote, "Working closely with Mayor Bala, I've successfully helped lead the fight on the city council to move forward with critical quality of life projects." Yeah, like voting on a new high school that was going to be overly expensive. Yeah, I don't think so, Philly, which he went on to say in a statement. He also mentioned including the construction of the Northwest Resiliency Park, defending our waterfront at Union Dry Dock, bringing city bikes to Hoboken, joy, as if Hoboken isn't congested enough. Now we need to have more bicyclists running around. Good job, Philly. And major infrastructure upgrades such as Vision Zero improvements and Rebuild by Design resiliency infrastructure. Now, he continued that during his first term, he conducted more than 65 community events, which were pretty much just giving out food, folks, let's be honest, and published a bi-monthly newsletter sent to constituents via email, which I happen to read through. And sometimes if I need a cure for insomnia, I can just go to my inbox and look up Phil Cohen's emails. They can gladly put anyone to sleep. It also goes on to say, quote, "No issue has been too large or small to tackle for my constituents. Everything from filing potholes and fixing stop signs to fighting for the Rivington's residents to roll back unconscionable rent increases. I'm running for re-election so I can continue the work of improving all Hoboken residents' quality of life and keeping our city on a sound, long-term fiscal path." He also announced that he will formally kick off his re-election campaign coming up on December the 13th at the Pilsner House and Beer Garden, which is located at 1422 Grant Street, starting at 6 p.m. Well, it's interesting, folks. I mean, I might take a trip out there just to get some free food and liquor at the expense of Phil Cohen. But this is what really bothers me about Phil. I mean, number one, he was a guy that was sort of this perpetual candidate forever running. And again, if it wasn't for Peter Cunningham deciding not to run for another term, Phil Cohen would have never even sniffed the city council chambers other than walking in and sitting in them during visiting hours. Okay? And this is the thing, folks, about someone like Phil Cohen and the Bala administration. Yeah, they can sort of hide behind virtue signal and all the things that they do like that and being all woke and being all about acceptance and tolerance and diversity. Folks, don't be fooled. Phil Cohen is no better than everything else that's associated with the Bala administration in Hoboken. Yes, rents continue to get more expensive. Property taxes continue to go up. The quality of life, I wouldn't say has deteriorated under the Bala administration, but it's not really getting any better, right? We're seeing development. We are seeing just more and more congestion. Of course, if you want to, look at who to blame for all these insufferable bicyclists going up and down the Moscow City, well, you can thank Philly Cohen for that, for the implementation of the City Bikes program. Now, you might say, well, Fernando, I get it. You have a car, you drive everywhere, and everybody has the luxury of a car. You're right. Everybody has the luxury of a car. But the last thing we need to be doing is taking something like Hoboken, creating more bike lanes, make it even more congested, as if parking isn't difficult enough, as if navigating up and down Hoboken streets isn't complicated enough as it is. But of course, when it comes to Philly Cohen, don't tell him that, because he'd rather virtue signal like he has been with the rest of the Bala administration. So we'll see what happens, folks, as he is up for another term next November, coming up in 2023. Now, is there going to be any sort of formidable opponent to him? I hope so, because one less virtue signaler on the city council, I think, is always a good thing. Let's move to the Jersey City Heights for a very important story. And again, for those of you that love to smoke and are all about dispensaries, this one's a topic that I think will very resonate with all of you. And a special thank you to Mark Cuso from the Jersey Journal for his report on this very important story. Now, as entrepreneurs have spread out across Jersey City to open cannabis businesses, the Heights neighborhoods collectively, though, are looking at as a very big destination. Now, for example, Blossom Dispensary plans to open on Tunnelly Avenue, while two of them already, the Leaf Joint and the Decades Dispensary, are already setting up along the Central Avenue shopping district. Now, 5 other applicants have also been approved by the local cannabis board. Now, David Jefferson, the CEO of the Leaf Joint, an existing CBD store at 391 Central Avenue, is looking to expand into selling recreational cannabis and currently has all the local approvals required as the business awaits full state approval. In a statement he put out this week, quote, "Cannabis is just not totally for what people assume it's for. It also has some medicinal purposes," which is true, to it as well. "It's been something that I've seen my family take part in for many years. Friends of mine have gone through a lot of issues with just trying to smoke a plant." Now, Jefferson also goes on to say that he's heard from people who are extremely enthusiastic about his business selling recreational cannabis. He's also said he's working closely with Councilman Yusuf Saleh, the Central Avenue Special Improvement District, and is participating in community efforts to ultimately to destigmatize cannabis altogether. Now, Saleh, who represents the Heights-based Ward D in Jersey City, said the dispensaries will have a positive impact on the community and cited the benefits of the legalization of recreational cannabis last year, such as decriminalization, building generational wealth, and ultimately community benefits. Councilman went on to say, quote, "Not just from a tax revenue perspective, but also I don't think any other industry has the same amount of requirements as the cannabis industry, and I've been an early supporter of it from the beginning." As for why dispensaries are attracted to the Heights, more on that later, Saleh says the neighborhood is great and family-friendly and that he's been very welcoming to having dispensaries there. On Central Avenue, though, currently, ladies and gentlemen, a few local business owners and managers have varied opinions about dispensaries setting up in the neighborhood. For example, Anna Paralco, the manager of the Cuticles Nail Salon a few doors down from the Decades store, says she's in favor of dispensaries, saying it will draw more people to local businesses. However, For example, Sheikh Asil, the owner of the Angel's Recipe ice cream and crepes store, is opposed to the cannabis retailer, saying teenagers smoke marijuana and it's not good for their health. Under state law, only people, obviously of the age of 21 or older, can buy and use cannabis legally. Well, folks, this is where I'm a little conflicted, because I'm someone that has always been about decriminalization, and I've written papers in graduate school about this, where, listen, people are not committing crimes, felonies, or whatever, or even violent crimes based on marijuana. If we're really going to be serious about the war on drugs and really trying to neutralize drug offenses and offenders, we have to go after harder drugs. I've never smoked marijuana. I don't care to. I never will. It's not for me. Okay? For me, my vice is either drinking a good glass of wine and chasing women. That's about the extent of what my vices are. Okay? But I get it. Marijuana has a lot of benefits. And not just, as a depressant, helps you relax, but folks, for medicinal purposes, I know people extensively who've benefited from using medicinal marijuana. People who have suffered during chemotherapy, people that have used it for pain management. That is overwhelmingly why I am for decriminalization and ultimately legalization. Again, I don't have any dog in the fight. I'm not looking to smoke tomorrow. That doesn't interest me. But for far too long, for almost half a century, what do we do in this country? We penalized young men and women, predominantly of color, and even poor people from all backgrounds, with drug offenses that have ruined the rest of their lives. I work in higher education, folks. I told my students for 4 years now, be careful whenever you carry anything, specifically marijuana. It could ruin your life. Not because of what it will do to you physically. Okay, if you look at what alcohol and tobacco do, it is infinitely more harmful than marijuana could ever be. But if you're caught with marijuana, again, prior to the legalization, here in New Jersey, you lose your financial aid. You'd be hit with maybe a felony and or misdemeanor. You'd have to pay restitution. You'd have to pay court-ordered fines. You'd be placed on probation. Essentially, you lose your right to vote, all because of carrying marijuana, which was wrong. And again, antiquated drug laws have become synonymous not just in New Jersey, but throughout the rest of the United States. Okay? However states want to govern and regulate marijuana, that's their business. Here in New Jersey, when it comes to dispensaries, I'm not so much opposed to them. I'd like them in much more expansive properties. But in an area like Hudson County, and especially an area that is densely populated as the Jersey City Heights, having way too many dispensaries might not be a good thing. Now, again, as the business owner mentioned in the article, I get it. For teenagers, smoking marijuana at a young age could stunt their growth, their brain activity, their cognitive development. I get all that stuff. Folks, the data's there. I'm all about science, okay? That information is out there for public consumption. I don't disagree with it. But for adults over the ages of 21, et cetera, even then, yes, brains aren't still fully developed as of yet. But there's no denying when it comes to pain management and, again, just being responsible with it medicinally, I don't see anything wrong with it. Do I want dispensaries being that close to schools? Again, folks, when we're talking about a densely populated area, whether it's Jersey City Heights, whether it's downtown Hoboken, whether it's Union City, West New York, Secaucus, wherever, it's a densely populated area, folks. Arguably the most densely populated county in the United States, never mind New Jersey, in the entire U.S. of A. Do I want dispensaries around? Yes. Do we need to be a little more judicious as to where they set up shop? Absolutely. Do I think they can be harmful by having so many within the close proximity of a school or daycares? Certainly. But again, folks, let's use some common sense and let's be, again, rational and pragmatic about how we go about giving licenses for dispensaries. Go smoke away. I don't blame you. I get it. We all deal with things differently. But for people moving out of New York City, right, Brooklyn, Queens, coming to New Jersey, Jersey's an attractive destination. Maybe not so much downtown because it's expensive, but the Heights and everywhere else, it's popular to come live here. I get it. You want to smoke? God bless you. But smoke responsibly and at the same time, sell responsibly as well. Let's stay in Jersey City with our final story here. And a local advocacy group is planning on holding the Phillips administration accountable. Now, a special thank you to Jordan Call with the Hudson Reporter for this very interesting story. Now, a local watchdog group is calling out city officials for what they may perceive as, quote, double dipping. Now, the local government watchdog group, Civic JC, has called out city officials for holding more than one job in Jersey City or for Hudson County, known as, quote, double dipping, taking aim at the administration of perhaps 2025 gubernatorial candidate Stephen Fulop. Esther Wintner, the president of Civic JC and a longtime Fulop critic and the author of a statement about the practice, criticized, quote, the hated practice of leeching off the government has helped to catapult Fulop to local stardom and ultimately mayor, and criticized the mayor for failing to end the practice. Now, a Fulop administration spokesperson insisted that the mayor believes an employee's job with the city comes first, but pointed out that court rulings restrict the mayor from preventing city personnel from having additional sources of income provided that they are disclosed, as the city charters does indeed require. And according to Civic JC, 2 members of Mayor Fulop's administration, 1 council member and 5 council staff members collected annual salaries from both Jersey City and Hudson County. Now let's sort of delve into it here a little more specifically. Ward 8 councilwoman Denise Ridley, according to Civic JC, receives a salary of $85,000 from the city itself, and also appears on the county payroll as a, quote, confidential assistant with the county register at a salary of $62,000, bringing her total annually to $147,000. Whitner went on to say via Civic JC and their social media, and of course they reached out to the county to provide a job description for what is known as, quote, a confidential assistant. She said the county responded, New Jersey Civil Service does not have job descriptions for the title confidential assistant or confidential aide. Now, John Metro, who serves as the city's business administrator, receives a city salary of $190,000, while maintaining a second income of $8,783 as secretary to the insurance fund and $7,450 as an aide to the Board of Commissioners, according to Civic JC. The group said that mayoral aide and chief of staff John Manella, who receives a salary of $175,000, also receives 2 additional salaries, $22,000 as a member of the Board of Elections and $6,700 as an aide to the county commissioners. Now, a city spokesperson sent an email to the Hudson Reporter, and it reads as follows, quote, the mayor still believes that working for the city should be the primary job for everyone employed there, but that isn't always possible, and the mayor does not control that legally. I don't know, folks, it seems like it's a really, really tricky picture in the city of Jersey City. Whether or not people are double dipping remains to be seen. Again, shout out to Esther Whitner because, you know, she's always been about accountability and transparency. And that's something, whether you like her or not, and whether you like Civic JC or not, that's something that they do on a consistent basis. I'll keep you posted about this, folks, because this story certainly is not going away. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to check out the Hudson Media Group YouTube page as well. Make sure you like them on Facebook and follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. Check out my own Instagram and Twitter, folks. It's the same handle, at the Fernando Zone, and also follow me on Facebook as well. You can check out episodes of the 7-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. You can listen to them from anywhere, anytime, from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet. We'll have some new episodes coming up in the month of December. And always remember, folks, right here, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier and now 7-time award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino, and of course, your favorite conservative, Fernando Uribe, saying so long, and as always, thank you so much for watching.